I met Ghislaine Maxwell in the fall of 1994 while I was a senior at the Fashion Institute of Technology and working for a Fifth Avenue retailer. She came into the store and her regular salesperson, I think, was not there, and I helped her. And that was our first meeting. And when I got to the hotel, I was dropping the packages at the concierge, and the concierge let me know that she was in the bar and she wanted me to meet someone. And I went in to the bar and met her boss/boyfriend, who was Epstein. That evening was the first time they assaulted me. I was involved with them for approximately 3 years. I attempted to get away from them several times. I moved a bunch of times. After about 3 years, they finally let up. When Epstein was arrested and all over the news, it was shocking because I thought it was just me. And that's part of the shame. You think these things happen to just you, and I was sickened to find out how many more women this happened to. First day of the trial, there were several other victims here, and I did speak to some of them. There haven't really been any good provisions for the victims to attend, in my experience at least. I have reached out to the Southern District of New York, Victims Coordination Office. I haven't received any help. On the first day of the trial, on the Southern District's website, they said that they were making provisions for the victims to attend, and I again reached out to the office and heard nothing back. So I've just been coming every day and chancing it. I've seen Maxwell's family be ushered in every day and sit in the front row in the courtroom, but victims haven't received that kind of treatment. I spoke to one of the victims the other day who expressed to me that she would have liked to have been here, but standing in line in the cold to be brought into an overflow courtroom was just a little bit too much for her. I think it's horrible. I think that anyone that was a victim of this crime needs to be treated with at least the same respect as the defendant's family. At least the same respect. This is my closure, and I need to be able to feel the things that I need to feel and not be running into the ladies' room to cry. I can say for myself, I feel like in some ways I've been in jail for the past 2.5 decades. And I'm ready to be out, and maybe it's her time to be in.
We have now entered the 6th day of deliberations in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. Today, I'll be reading from a number of news articles updating from the last Maxwell video I had done, which was the prosecution presenting evidence. The articles I'll read are from a number of different articles, mainly from abroad, as to not showcase any prejudice. It'll be hard because it just seems that this trial has been wrought with prejudice coming from all sides, it seems. The article I'll read is from December 10th, 2021, in which the prosecution had rested its case in the Maxwell trial, according to NPR, in which the prosecution rested their case in the trial against Ghislaine Maxwell, the British socialite accused of assisting the financier Jeffrey Epstein in sexually exploiting minors. When opening arguments began 2 weeks ago, the trial was predicted to last as long as 6 weeks, The timeline could now move up, and here was the latest. A fourth and final accuser had taken the stand. The prosecution ended its case after the fourth accuser in the trial, Annie Farmer, took the stand. Her sister, Maria Farmer, who was interviewed by Reed Coverdale of the Naturalist Capitalist just 2 weeks ago. Farmer, who is the first accuser to use her real name rather than a pseudonym in court, said that in the 1990s, her sister Maria was an employee for Epstein in New York City. Maria was an inspiring artist who had met Epstein at a show. He took an interest in helping her career and eventually hired her to purchase art for him. Annie Farmer told the jury that she met Epstein in 1995 and that he took an interest in advancing in her education. He also offered to buy her a plane ticket to visit New York from Arizona. It's a narrative the jury has heard repeatedly in the trial. All of the women who had taken the stand against Maxwell. She says that Epstein initially expressed interest in helping advance their education and careers before redirecting all of them towards sex with Epstein. Farmer said that she and her sister reported Epstein's sexual advances and abuse to the New York police and the FBI in 1996. Both sisters say there was no follow-up at the time. Central in the case has been the concept of grooming, psychologically preparing someone for sexual abuse. All four women who have testified so far say Maxwell facilitated Epstein's abuse by creating trust, creating a relaxed, jovial environment that became increasingly sexual, arranging visits, and even participating in his sexual abuse herself. Several women also described being in life situations that made them especially vulnerable. One witness spoke of having recently lost a father. Another had just moved and said she had few friends. One of the major points of curiosity in the case has been an address book filled with Jeffrey Epstein's contacts. Witnesses say this is where Epstein stored the names of the girls who gave him massages. Given the powerful and famous men in Epstein's social circle, this little black book, as it's been referred to, has garnered intense interest from followers of the case. Last week, witness Juan Alessi, Epstein's former house manager, said there were several such books around the house with hundreds of names in each one. He said he frequently saw Maxwell using them to schedule massages for Epstein or to arrange visits from girls. The defense has argued that there's no proof that all of those instances involved the same book. On Thursday of that week, U.S. District Judge Allison Nathan ruled that the book of contacts can be introduced in the trial. That doesn't mean the evidence will become public in negotiations. Prosecution and defense have agreed that only excerpts of the book will be introduced. According to an article dated December 16th of CNN, Ghislaine Maxwell defense opens its case with testimony from former assistant and memory expert. The former assistant, Cimberly Espinoza, testified for just under 2 hours about the roughly 6 years she spent working for Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's company in New York from 1996 to 2002. Espinoza testified for the defense as a former assistant and expert on false memories. Her testimony mainly focused on the memories of a sweetie named Jane, one of the four women who testified Maxwell groomed her for sexual abuse when she was underage. Jane appeared to be probably 18 when she met her, Espinoza said. Jane's mother told employees that Jane was Epstein's goddaughter. Espinoza testified that Epstein treated Jane nicely as far as she could see. Jane testified earlier in the trial Epstein had sexually abused her and that Maxwell at times joined in on the abuse, both in Palm Beach, Florida and Manhattan, when Jane was 14, 15, and 16 years old. Espinosa also testified that Maxwell and Epstein were a little flirty and appeared to be in a romantic relationship. In the early 2000s, though, she believed they had stopped dating and were no longer traveling to and from the office together. The assistant said she respected Maxwell, who treated her fairly and nicely, and she praised Epstein as generous. She said she'd never seen anything to suggest Maxwell or Epstein ever behaved inappropriately with underage girls. The assistant's testimony came as the defense began to present its case in the sex trafficking conspiracy trial of Ghislaine Maxwell. The defense case is expected to last a few days. Judge Allison Nathan said she expects closing arguments to take place 2 weeks from Monday, with the case going to the jury. The prosecution rested its case last Friday after calling 24 witnesses across 10 days of testimony. Their case was highlighted by 4 women who said they were sexually abused by Epstein when they were under 18. Prosecutors introduced photos of Maxwell and Epstein embracing and smiling for the camera over the years, including several showing her massaging his foot. The defense objected to showing the jury these photos, but the prosecution insisted their close relationship was central to the case, and the judge agreed. And of course, that would be the case because, according to Maxwell's defense, Maxwell is using the argument that she barely knew Epstein and was quite distant from him, even during the last days of him being free, which wasn't the case. Maxwell was intimately involved with Epstein all the way to the day before his arrest. Now, defense attorneys have argued Maxwell is being scapegoated for Epstein's actions and have attacked the memories and motivations of the women who say they were abused. Well, they only interviewed 4, which leads me to believe that there is a whole lot more, some who have come out publicly who are afraid, and rightfully so, after Epstein's death and the amount of powerful people he commiserated with and even blackmailed. And I blame the prosecution for not calling on more witnesses. This trial should have been continuing. Right now, it's in deliberations, which I have an argument for, because at no point should we have just put up 4 witnesses when there were dozens, and who knows, probably hundreds. And that's my my beef with the prosecution, is that it seemed that they just barely put the case together because of the mere fact that I think, well, I'll give my thoughts in a bit. However, during the trial, now read a part of Vanity Fair's article entitled "What Ghislaine Maxwell's Trial is Revealing About the Workday Cruelty of Life Under Epstein." I'm going to link this article under the description because it's a fantastic article, and it was written by Dan Adler on December 9, 2021, in which I'll read a part of it. An FBI analyst read aloud to a jury part of an email that Ghislaine Maxwell sent in May of 2001, in which she said, I quote, "I need to know what, if any, list John is using, and he needs to understand that he is doing a truly awful job," end quote, she wrote, before enumerating 6 reasons why she thought Juan Alessi, the longtime manager of Jeffrey Epstein's Palm Beach estate, was shirking his duties. As Alessi testified earlier in the British Airways federal sex trafficking trial, Epstein and Maxwell referred to him as John. Among Maxwell's complaints were that the black Mercedes, or Merc in her parlance, apparently lacked drinking water and pens. The color cards in the computer hasn't been changed. Obviously, Juan Alessi Jeffrey Epstein would not be happy about it. Whether the prosecution could successfully depict Maxwell's major dormant role as a criminal matter remains to be seen, but an answer may arrive sooner than expected. When the trial was originally scheduled to last up to 6 weeks, prosecutors said on Tuesday that they rested. The proceedings to date have emphasized how Maxwell maintained the pageantry of Epstein's importance During the testimony, Alessi said that Maxwell gave him a 30-page manual with detailed instructions, and once, along with Epstein, invited him to a symposium at Epstein's New Mexico ranch for the employees across his residences in order to align their understandings of how to clean his homes. Reading aloud from the manual that he said was similar to the one he received, Alessi listed the stationery that was kept on hand, including 3 sizes of Epstein's notepads, 2 sizes of Maxwell and Lady Ghislaine's notepads, letterhead stationery and envelopes, 1 pack from each of Mr. Epstein's residences and businesses, and Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell cards and envelopes. During his testimony, Alessi read aloud one of the more chilling instructions that he was expected to follow. Quote, "Remember that you see nothing, hear nothing, say nothing, except to answer a question directed to you," end quote. A woman testifying under the name Kate said earlier during the trial that the abuse she experienced began when Maxwell had to solve a problem. She said that he needed massages all the time and it was difficult to keep up. Kate also said that Maxwell led him up the stairs and opened the door to a room that had a massage table on it. Prosecutions entered into evidence some disquieting photos of Maxwell massaging Epstein's feet on his private jet, so it was hard to think of her as simply an employee. So there's a lot to go with here in terms of trial, and some of the trial evidence was illuminating, even though there could have been a whole lot more, including the names in the black book, including, which wasn't presented, including the CDs and photographs that were obtained by the FBI, but were they the CDs and photos that were originally in the sheets and the albums in Epstein's Manhattan home and his home in Palm Beach? Now, the home in Manhattan, it was Epstein's lawyer who went and retrieved the CDs and photographs. And when the FBI basically found out, they ordered the lawyer to return to, in their possession, the FBI's, the photos and the CDs. But were they originally the CDs and photos that were initially taken by Epstein's lawyer? And why was he allowed to take it and not charged with taking evidence? So I don't know why. And throughout the trial, you had a number of employees who were employees that were hired to clean the massage tables and the sex toys that were found in the Palm Beach residence, including Jeffrey Maxwell's bodily fluids that were located on towels, including dildos and other sex objects. And there was a number of photographs that were taken, that was shown to the trial, was shown to the jury, presented in court as evidence. And after the prosecution and the defense rested in a very abrupt trial, short, which made me very skeptical and suspicious. Now, this would lead many to think that there's something going on. that the prosecution would only present minimal amount of evidence showing Maxwell as involved, but not too involved, even though I think the evidence presented is enough. I think that this trial might be a hung jury. 6 days of deliberations leads me to believe that this will be a hung jury. Now, it would be up to the prosecution to want to retry the case. And there's a individual right outside the court out now who goes by the name One Addy Ads, and he's given updates, and I'll link him to the bottom of the description as well. He's doing a great job. Now, according to the articles that were talking about the deliberations, and I'm going to quote one from the New York Post today, that Ghislaine Maxwell's judge asks the jury to deliberate through New Year's Eve weekend. The federal judge presiding over the Ghislaine Maxwell trial has asked the jury to deliberate through the holiday weekend, including New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and January 2nd. The jurors had sent a note to Judge Allison Nathan on Wednesday morning at the start of the fifth full day of deliberations, requesting 5 transcripts of trial testimony and clarification on whether they have to sit through the holiday weekend. And Nathan wrote back that they should plan on deliberating between December 31st and January 2nd, but said they could raise scheduling conflicts they may have. According to Nathan, quote, if the schedule presents a substantial hardship for anyone because of unmovable commitments, please let Ms. Williams know, end quote. Nathan added that she did not mean to pressure the jurors with the schedule, and they should take as much time as needed to return a verdict. On Tuesday, Nathan told jurors that the parties in the case that the strict schedule is necessary because of an astronomical spike in COVID cases in the city and the threat that either a juror or a trial participant may fall ill and need to quarantine. Jurors sent in a note at the end of the day, Tuesday, that they were making progress in their deliberations. On Wednesday, they requested trial testimony from 5 witnesses, including some called by Maxwell's defense. One of the requested transcripts was for Elizabeth Loftus, a psychologist and expert on false memories, who testified as an expert witness for the defense. At trial, Loftus told jurors that people who construct false memories can be just as emotional about them as if the events actually happened. Loftus said on December 16th, emotion is no guarantee that you're dealing with an authentic memory. Loftus has testified or consulted in some 300 trials since 1975, including Michael Jackson, O.J. Simpson, Robert Durst, and Ted Bundy. What a list of names of ghouls to be associated with, but it fits right up there with Ghislaine Maxwell, who I probably would consider worse than all of them, save Ted Bundy. And for the jury trial to concentrate on Loftus' testimony, well, that leads me to think that the jury is probably considering that some of the memories of some of the witnesses are questionable, maybe even planted by whoever. So I don't like the looks of that. And there's the updates that we have so far. It's now in the jury's hands to bring about 6 federal charges, including one for sex trafficking of a minor, and sex trafficking conspiracy, which could lead her to 70 years in prison if found guilty. The 4 other charges related to the Mann Act, which bars transporting individuals across state lines for illegal sexual activity. panel of 6 men and 6 women are weighing the 6 federal charges against Maxwell as we speak. It is now the 6th day of deliberations, and I fear that this will go past into the new year. And my biggest fear is that they'll reach a hung jury. And it'll be up, like I said, to the prosecution to want to try the case again. Now, who knows who's pulling the strings? Who knows how many? Who knows how less? But one thing is for certain, there are powerful people who could be implicated in this, because I doubt that we'll see Maxwell fall on the sword without making a whim or a complaint, or maybe even naming names, because if she takes the fall, so should everybody else. And that's just the reason why I think this will be a hung jury. Although I could be wrong, and I don't want to be a pessimist for those who are listening and for those who are victimized against Maxwell, who may be listening. Maybe the new year will ring in hope. Maybe the new year will ring in 70 years of prison time for the monster that is Ghislaine Maxwell. And maybe, as an extra present, that one day we'll see what names were in that black book.